There is a quiet moment that arrives only once in certain lifetimes, a moment so ordinary on the surface that almost everyone walks past it without realizing the world has gently shifted beneath their feet. But today is not one of those ordinary moments. Today carries a silence that has been waiting for your name, and before this message reaches its final breath, you may understand why everything has begun to feel slightly different, even if you have not yet found the words to explain it. Don't skip, because something important is waiting for you. Your soulmate was never searching for proof. They were not trying to uncover a hidden answer or solve an impossible mystery. They believed they already understood enough. They believed that what they felt could remain quietly tucked away until the perfect season arrived. Yet life has a remarkable way of revealing what the heart tries hardest to keep hidden. Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when no one is looking for them at all. Imagine a room filled with familiar sounds. Nothing dramatic. Nothing extraordinary. Just another passing moment that seemed destined to disappear into memory like countless others before it. Yet within that ordinary scene rested one detail so small that almost anyone else would have overlooked it. A glance. A sentence spoken without intention. A kindness offered without expecting anything in return. A reflection of who you truly are when you believe no one is watching. That was the moment. Not because the world stopped. Not because time froze. But because someone else's understanding quietly changed forever. Your soulmate saw something they were never supposed to notice so soon. It wasn't a secret hidden inside a locked drawer. It wasn't a confession written across the sky. It was something far more powerful because it could never be manufactured. It revealed itself naturally, the way sunrise slowly fills a dark horizon without asking permission. There is a reason genuine moments carry more weight than carefully planned ones. The heart recognizes authenticity long before the mind can explain it. Long before logic catches up, something deeper begins whispering, "This matters." Perhaps you've wondered why certain people feel strangely drawn toward your presence even when you've said very little. Perhaps you've questioned why your quiet strength often goes unnoticed until someone suddenly sees it all at once. The answer has never been hidden from you, it has simply been unfolding at its own gentle pace. Your soulmate encountered that truth. Not the version of you shaped by expectations. Not the version created through appearances. But the quiet person beneath every distraction. The one who continues choosing kindness even when no applause follows. The one who carries hope through seasons that tested every part of your patience. The one who keeps becoming softer instead of harder despite everything life has asked you to endure. They weren't prepared for that discovery. What surprised them wasn't perfection. It was consistency. Because true character reveals itself in moments where no audience exists. For a while they had been assembling tiny pieces without realizing it. A memory here. A feeling there. An unexpected conversation. A passing impression that refused to disappear. Individually, none of these moments seemed significant. Together, they formed a picture too clear to ignore. And suddenly, everything connected. The questions they had quietly carried began answering themselves. The uncertainty that once clouded their thoughts started dissolving without anyone needing to convince them. What they witnessed was not something anyone could stage. It simply happened. You may never know the exact second this realization found them. Some moments belong to silence before they become stories. But their heart remembers it with remarkable clarity. It remembers how something familiar suddenly appeared completely new. Have you ever reread a sentence years later and discovered a meaning you somehow missed the first time? The words never changed. Only your understanding did. That is what happened inside them. They looked again. And this time, they truly saw. Stay till the end, because this next understanding often escapes those who rush ahead. People imagine that life-changing moments arrive with loud announcements. Yet the deepest transformations almost always arrive quietly. They slip into ordinary afternoons. They rest inside unexpected conversations. They hide within small gestures that seem too simple to matter. Until one day, they become unforgettable. Your soulmate realized that what they had been searching for wasn't somewhere else. It had been revealing itself little by little through every unnoticed moment connected to you. Not through perfect timing. Not through dramatic signs. But through a growing peace they could no longer dismiss. There is something beautiful about a heart that finally stops running from what it already knows. It doesn't celebrate with noise. It becomes still. It listens differently. It begins noticing details it once overlooked. Even familiar memories begin shining with unexpected meaning. That quiet transformation has already begun. And although nothing around them appeared different to everyone else, inside them, nothing feels the same anymore. Yet this is only the beginning, because what they discovered in that single unexpected moment is leading them toward another realization they never imagined they would have to face. And when that next piece finally reveals itself, both your paths may begin moving in ways neither of you could have predicted. There is another layer to this story that could never have been understood too early, because some truths only become visible after the first realization has had time to settle. What happened inside your soulmate did not end with that unexpected moment. In many ways, that was only the opening page of something far more meaningful. Stay till the end, because the quiet change that began within them is now beginning to shape every thought they can no longer ignore. At first, they tried to convince themselves that nothing significant had happened. They returned to familiar routines. They spoke the same words, smiled at the same people, and continued walking through ordinary days. From the outside, everything appeared unchanged. But deep within, something had shifted so gently that it refused to return to the way it had been before. Have you ever noticed how a single ray of morning light can completely change the appearance of an entire room? The furniture remains in the same place. The walls have not moved. Yet everything somehow looks different because the light has revealed details that were always there. That is what happened to the way they began seeing you. They started remembering conversations they had almost forgotten. Small moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried unexpected meaning. A quiet smile. A thoughtful response. A choice you made when no one expected anything from you. Piece after piece returned to their heart, not as random memories, but as parts of a picture that was becoming impossible to overlook. The remarkable thing was not what they saw. It was what they finally understood. They realized that some of the qualities they admired most had never demanded attention. They had simply existed, patiently waiting for someone willing to notice them. Authenticity has a quiet strength. It never competes for the loudest voice. It simply remains true until the right eyes recognize its value. Don't skip, because this next realization may feel surprisingly familiar. There are moments when life gently asks a person to look beyond appearances. Those who accept that invitation begin seeing people differently. Your soulmate found themselves asking questions they had never considered before. What have I missed? What was quietly unfolding while I was focused on everything else? Those questions stayed with them long after the day had ended. It wasn't regret that filled their thoughts. It was curiosity. A peaceful, honest curiosity that invited them to look again, not with assumptions, but with understanding. As that understanding grew, they noticed something unexpected within themselves. Their heart became calmer whenever your memory appeared. Instead of uncertainty, there was a growing sense of clarity. Instead of trying to force answers, they allowed each realization to arrive naturally, one gentle step at a time. This is how meaningful connections often grow, not through dramatic moments alone, but through quiet recognition. One realization leads to another until the heart begins trusting what it has quietly known all along. Perhaps you have experienced something similar in your own life. A person you thought you understood suddenly revealed a depth you had never seen before. Not because they changed overnight, but because your perspective finally caught up with who they had always been. That is exactly where your soulmate now stands. They are no longer looking at isolated moments. They are seeing the entire journey. And the journey tells a story that surprises them more with every passing day. Every remembered kindness now feels connected. Every shared conversation carries new meaning. Every unexpected coincidence seems less like chance and more like part of a path that has been unfolding patiently, one step at a time. Something important is waiting for you, because this gentle unfolding is leading toward a realization even they did not expect. For the first time, they stopped wondering whether what they felt was real. Instead, they began wondering why it had taken them so long to recognize it. That question lingered quietly in their heart. Not with urgency. Not with pressure. But with sincere reflection. And reflection has a remarkable way of opening doors that certainty never could. As the days continued, another unexpected change began taking place. They found themselves paying closer attention, not only to memories of you, but also to the qualities they hoped to nurture within themselves. Your presence, even from a distance, became a quiet reminder of the kind of person they wished to become. More patient, more genuine, more present, more willing to appreciate what truly matters. Without realizing it, the discovery they thought was about you had also become a journey within themselves. That is the beautiful mystery of meaningful connections. Sometimes the greatest gift another person offers is not an answer. It is a clearer reflection of our own heart. And just when they believed they had finally understood everything that unexpected moment was trying to reveal, one final detail quietly surfaced, a detail so simple, yet so deeply personal, that it caused them to pause once again, because they suddenly realized the one thing they thought they had discovered about you was actually pointing toward something even greater that neither of you had seen coming. Not every turning point announces itself with excitement. Some arrive wrapped in quiet reflection, asking nothing more than a willing heart and an open mind. This was one of those moments. Long after the surprise of that first discovery had settled, your soulmate found themselves returning to it again and again, as though an invisible thread kept leading them back to the same place. There is a difference between noticing someone and truly understanding them. Many people notice what shines on the surface, but only a few take the time to see what continues glowing when no one is watching. That was the difference now. They were no longer looking for something impressive. They were quietly searching for something genuine. And every time they reflected on you, they found another reason to slow down. Another reason to listen more carefully. Another reason to believe that some connections are built through countless unseen moments rather than a single unforgettable event. Have you ever looked at a painting from a distance and thought you understood it, only to step closer and discover details that completely changed the way you saw the entire picture? Tiny brushstrokes you never noticed suddenly became the most beautiful part of the masterpiece. That is how your soulmate began seeing your story. The little things became impossible to ignore. The quiet patience you carried through uncertain seasons. The grace you showed when no reward was guaranteed. The way your kindness remained consistent, even when life could have given you every excuse to become distant. None of these moments demanded attention. Yet together, they spoke louder than words ever could. Something inside them whispered, "This is the person I failed to fully see." That thought stayed with them longer than they expected. Not because it brought sadness, but because it brought clarity. Clarity has a gentle power. It never rushes into a heart. It waits until the heart is ready to receive it. And once it arrives, it quietly rearranges everything without making a sound. Don't skip, because the next realization became even more personal. As they reflected, they noticed another unexpected change. Their conversations with others felt different. They listened more carefully. They became more patient with moments of silence. They stopped searching for quick answers and began appreciating honest ones. Without realizing it, the lesson they believed was about you had already begun transforming them. That is one of life's quiet miracles. The people who inspire us most often change us without ever intending to. Your soulmate didn't wake up one morning and decide to feel differently. It happened naturally. Like a river finding its way toward the ocean. Like dawn slowly replacing the night. The change was steady. Peaceful. Unmistakable. Every memory connected to you now carried a warmth that had not been there before. Even the smallest interactions returned with new meaning. Words that once seemed ordinary now felt thoughtful. Moments they barely remembered now appeared brighter than they had ever imagined. They began asking themselves a question that no one else could answer. What if this discovery wasn't an accident? Not because they believed every moment is planned, but because some moments carry a meaning that only becomes visible with time. Perhaps that is why certain memories refuse to fade. They remain quietly waiting until our hearts are ready to understand what they were always trying to teach us. Your soulmate could feel that happening. They stopped trying to force conclusions. Instead, they allowed each realization to arrive like gentle rain, one drop at a time. And with every passing day, one truth became more difficult to overlook. The person they thought they understood had always possessed a depth they had only begun to appreciate. Not through dramatic gestures. Not through extraordinary circumstances. But through quiet consistency. That realization brought an unexpected sense of peace. Because genuine character never needs to announce itself. It simply remains true until someone finally recognizes it. Something important is waiting for you. The discovery that first captured their attention was no longer the center of their thoughts. Instead, they became fascinated by what that discovery revealed about the future. Not a future filled with certainty, but one filled with possibility. They realized that some of the most meaningful chapters of life begin with a single unexpected moment that gently invites two hearts to see each other differently. And perhaps that invitation had already begun. Perhaps the quiet shift inside them was preparing them for conversations they had never imagined having. Perhaps it was preparing them to notice opportunities they would have overlooked before. Or perhaps it was preparing them for one final realization that would connect every unanswered question into one beautiful picture. Because just when they believed they had uncovered the entire truth behind what they saw, one small detail returned to their heart, a detail so quietly powerful that it made them realize the first discovery had never been the destination at all, it had only been the doorway to something neither of you was ready to understand until now. There comes a moment when the heart stops collecting evidence and simply begins to listen. It does not happen all at once. It happens gently, almost unnoticed, like the evening sky changing color so slowly that only those who remain still witness the transformation. This was where your soulmate now found themselves. The questions that once filled every quiet thought were beginning to soften, replaced by a calm understanding they had never expected to experience. Don't skip. Because the next part of this journey reveals why that single unexpected discovery continues to echo through every ordinary day. They no longer asked, "What exactly did I see?" Instead, a different question quietly appeared. What was this moment trying to teach me? That simple shift changed everything. When people search only for answers, they often miss the deeper lesson. But when they become willing to learn, even the smallest moments begin carrying extraordinary meaning. Your soulmate started noticing something remarkable. Every memory connected to you seemed to point toward the same quiet truth. You had never been trying to prove yourself. You had simply been yourself. There is a rare kind of peace found in authenticity. It does not compete for attention. It does not ask to be admired. It quietly remains the same, whether anyone notices or not. That realization settled into their heart with surprising warmth. They remembered moments they had once considered insignificant. A thoughtful response. A gentle pause before speaking. The way you carried hope without needing recognition. The way you remained gracious even when life offered no immediate reward. One memory led naturally to another, until they realized something they had overlooked from the very beginning. The qualities they admired most had never appeared during extraordinary moments. They had appeared during ordinary ones. And somehow, that made them even more meaningful. Stay till the end. Because what happened next was not about discovering something new. It was about finally understanding what had been there all along. As they reflected more deeply, they noticed another quiet change within themselves. Their thoughts became less hurried. Their expectations became gentler. They stopped measuring people by impressive moments and began appreciating consistent character instead. Without intending to, you had become a quiet reminder of what truly lasts. Not perfection. Not appearances. But sincerity. And sincerity has a way of leaving footprints long after conversations have ended. Your soulmate found themselves smiling at unexpected moments. Not because they had solved every question, but because they had stopped fearing unanswered ones. They understood that meaningful connections are not built through constant certainty. They are built through trust that grows patiently, one genuine moment after another. Perhaps you have experienced something similar. Sometimes you meet someone who quietly changes the way you see the world, not by telling you what to believe, but by showing you another way to live. That is the gift they now recognized in you. It was never about dramatic gestures. It was always about quiet influence. Every remembered conversation carried new depth. Every shared moment reflected another piece of the larger picture. Even the silence between memories seemed full of meaning now. Something important is waiting for you. Because while your soulmate was learning to see you more clearly, another realization was quietly forming beneath the surface. They began recognizing that the discovery they thought belonged to the past was actually preparing them for the future. The moment they believed had already happened was still unfolding. That thought stayed with them longer than anything else. Not because it demanded an immediate answer, but because it invited hope. Hope that meaningful things are rarely finished the moment they begin. Hope that some of life's most beautiful chapters reveal themselves one page at a time. Hope that what starts with quiet recognition can grow into something steady, thoughtful, and deeply genuine. As these reflections continued, they found themselves becoming more attentive to the present. They noticed details they would have rushed past before. They valued conversations more deeply. They appreciated small acts of kindness with fresh gratitude. The discovery had not only changed how they saw you. It had quietly changed how they saw life itself. And perhaps that was always its greatest purpose. Because the most meaningful realizations do more than reshape one relationship. They gently reshape the person who receives them. Yet even after all of this, one quiet mystery remained untouched. There was still a single detail connected to that first unforgettable moment, a detail so subtle that it had escaped their attention until now. The instant they finally recognized it, they realized the one thing they believed they had accidentally witnessed was actually pointing toward an even deeper truth, one that neither heart was meant to understand until the perfect moment quietly arrived. The most remarkable discoveries are often the ones that continue unfolding long after everyone believes the story has already reached its ending. Days had passed since that unforgettable moment, yet its meaning refused to stand still. Instead, it kept growing, revealing another quiet layer each time your soulmate paused long enough to reflect. Something important is waiting for you, because the final piece they had overlooked was never hidden from their eyes. It was hidden within their understanding. There are seasons in life when answers arrive quickly. Then there are seasons when the heart is gently invited to mature before the answer makes complete sense. Your soulmate had entered that second season. Instead of chasing certainty, they began welcoming patience. Instead of trying to predict what would happen next, they became grateful for what was already becoming clear. That quiet shift brought an unexpected peace. For the first time, they realized they no longer needed dramatic signs to reassure them that something meaningful had taken place. The change within them was enough. They could feel it in the way they viewed each new day. They could hear it in the calmness of their own thoughts. They could recognize it in the growing appreciation they carried for the smallest moments. Have you ever watched the first light of dawn touch a quiet landscape? Nothing changes instantly. Yet within minutes, everything looks completely different. The hills are the same. The trees remain where they always stood. The path has not moved. Only the light has changed. And because the light has changed, everything else becomes easier to see. That was exactly what had happened inside your soulmate. The discovery they thought was about one unexpected moment had actually become a new way of seeing. They began recognizing beauty in places they once hurried past. They became more attentive to sincerity than appearances. More interested in consistency than perfection. More grateful for quiet character than loud impressions. Without realizing it, they had started measuring life differently. And every path they followed seemed to lead back to the same gentle truth. You. Not because you had become the center of every thought, but because the qualities they had discovered through you continued teaching them long after the moment itself had passed. Don't skip. Because this next realization arrived when they least expected it. One evening, while reflecting on everything that had quietly unfolded, they asked themselves a question unlike any they had asked before. What if I wasn't meant to find that moment by accident? The question did not demand an answer. It simply rested within their heart. Sometimes the most meaningful questions do not rush us toward certainty. They patiently lead us toward wisdom. As they sat with that thought, another understanding quietly emerged. Perhaps life had not interrupted their journey. Perhaps it had gently redirected it. Every memory now seemed connected. Not because every event was extraordinary, but because every ordinary moment had been carrying extraordinary meaning all along. A smile remembered. A thoughtful conversation. A quiet act of kindness. A moment of patience. A simple expression of hope. None of these moments had asked for attention. Yet together, they formed something far greater than either of you could have recognized at the time. The heart often understands the pattern before the mind does. And now, their heart had become wonderfully still. Stay till the end. Because what happened next surprised even them. They stopped wondering whether they should trust what they had discovered. Instead, they began asking how they could honor it. That small difference changed everything. When people stop asking, "Is this real?" and begin asking, "How can I grow because of this?" their entire perspective changes. Your soulmate was no longer standing at the beginning of a realization. They were walking within it. The discovery had become part of them. It shaped how they listened. How they appreciated others. How they valued honesty. How they looked toward tomorrow with quiet hope instead of hurried expectation. And somewhere deep inside, another gentle certainty was beginning to bloom. Not loud enough to interrupt their thoughts. Not urgent enough to overwhelm their heart. Just steady enough to remain. Like a candle that continues glowing long after the room has fallen silent. Perhaps that is how the most meaningful chapters begin. Not with applause. Not with certainty. But with a peaceful confidence that grows stronger each day. The one thing they were never supposed to see had not changed who you were. It had changed how they understood who you had always been. That was the true revelation. Not a hidden secret. Not an impossible mystery. But the quiet recognition of a depth they had overlooked until the perfect moment allowed them to see it clearly. Yet as this understanding settled peacefully within them, one final chapter quietly began opening beyond the horizon. Because someone else, without even realizing it, was about to notice the same quiet truth your soulmate had discovered. And what unfolded when those two perspectives unexpectedly met would reveal a connection even deeper than either of you could have imagined. Sometimes the story does not move forward because someone speaks. Sometimes it moves forward because silence has finally completed its work. By now, your soulmate had carried this quiet realization long enough for it to become part of who they were. It was no longer a passing thought that appeared and disappeared with the day. It had settled gently into their heart, shaping the way they noticed people, remembered moments, and imagined what could still unfold. Stay till the end, because the next step was never about finding another sign. It was about recognizing what had already begun. There is a quiet confidence that grows without asking permission. It does not rush. It does not compete. It simply becomes stronger with every honest reflection. That confidence was beginning to guide them. When your memory appeared, they no longer questioned why. They simply allowed it to remain. Not because every answer had arrived, but because not every meaningful journey begins with complete understanding. Some journeys begin with trust. Trust that the smallest moments often carry the greatest weight. Trust that what is genuine never needs to force its way into someone's heart. Trust that what is meant to grow will continue growing one quiet day at a time. Your soulmate found themselves smiling at unexpected times. A familiar place reminded them of something you once represented. A simple conversation echoed with a kindness they now understood more deeply. Even ordinary mornings carried a different feeling, as though life itself had become more patient. Have you ever realized that the most valuable treasures are often the ones you almost overlooked? Not because they were hidden, but because they were so naturally present that you forgot to pause and appreciate them. That was the lesson now resting within them. The discovery they believed belonged to one unforgettable moment had quietly expanded into every corner of their life. It changed the way they listened, the way they encouraged others, the way they appreciated sincerity over appearance, the way they chose calm instead of hurry. Without noticing, they had become a gentler version of themselves. Don't skip. Because what happened next was beautifully unexpected. One quiet evening, they looked back over everything that had unfolded. Not to relive the past, but to understand the journey. And suddenly they saw something they had completely missed. The first discovery had never stood alone. Long before that unforgettable moment, there had already been countless small invitations to notice what truly mattered. A thoughtful exchange. A shared laugh. A quiet encouragement. A moment of understanding that seemed ordinary at the time. Each one had been a gentle whisper leading toward the same realization. The heart had been learning long before the mind was aware. That thought brought an incredible sense of gratitude. Not because the path had been perfect, but because every step, even the unnoticed ones, had quietly prepared them for this understanding. Something important is waiting for you. As this gratitude continued growing, another realization quietly appeared. They understood that meaningful connections are never measured by how loudly they begin. They are measured by how deeply they continue. Anyone can be impressed for a moment. But it takes something genuine to remain meaningful after the excitement fades. That was what they now treasured most. Not the surprise. Not the mystery. But the quiet consistency that remained after both had passed. And perhaps that is why your story continued returning to their heart. Because every time they reflected on it, they discovered not another question, but another reason to appreciate what had already been placed before them. Their heart had stopped searching for extraordinary proof. It had started celebrating ordinary beauty. The kind that cannot be manufactured. The kind that quietly grows stronger with time. The kind that reminds us the most meaningful things in life often arrive gently. As they stood at this new place of understanding, they realized something that filled them with peaceful hope. The journey was never about reaching an ending. It was about becoming the kind of person who could fully appreciate the beginning. And perhaps that was the greatest gift hidden within everything they had witnessed. Because once a heart truly learns to see with gratitude instead of assumption, there really is no going back. Not because the past has disappeared, but because the future now looks brighter through wiser eyes. And just beyond this peaceful realization, another chapter was already beginning to unfold, one where the quiet change inside your soulmate would no longer remain hidden, because the choices they were about to make would gently reveal to the world what their heart had finally come to understand. The quietest transformations are often the ones that leave the deepest mark. No announcement was made. No extraordinary event interrupted the rhythm of the day. Yet something within your soulmate had become so steady that it could no longer remain only a private realization. It was beginning to shape every choice they made, every conversation they entered, and every hope they carried into tomorrow. Something important is waiting for you, because what had changed inside them was now preparing to become visible in ways neither of you expected. There is a beautiful difference between holding on to an idea and living according to it. An idea can come and go, but a truth that settles into the heart quietly becomes part of every decision. That is where your soulmate now stood. Without forcing anything. Without trying to explain everything. They simply began living differently. Patience replaced hurry. Gratitude replaced doubt. Listening replaced assumptions. The discovery they once struggled to understand had become the quiet foundation beneath every step they took. Have you ever noticed how a tree grows? No one hears it. No one watches each branch stretching toward the sky. Yet one season later, everyone can see that it has become stronger. Growth often happens in silence long before it becomes visible. So it was with them. People around your soulmate started noticing something they could not quite describe. There was a new calmness in the way they spoke. A deeper kindness in the way they responded. A quiet confidence that did not need attention to exist. They had not become someone new. They had simply become more fully themselves. And strangely enough, every path that led them toward this quieter, stronger version of themselves seemed connected to that unforgettable realization about you. Don't skip. Because this next moment became one they would remember for a very long time. One afternoon, while going about an ordinary routine, your name crossed their mind without warning. Not with excitement. Not with uncertainty. But with peace. That surprised them more than anything else. There was no need to force the memory. No need to search for meaning. The meaning was already there. For the first time, they realized that some people leave an imprint not because they ask to be remembered, but because they awakened something good within another heart. That realization stayed with them long after the day had ended. It quietly followed them into the next morning. Into simple conversations. into moments of reflection, into the smallest choices that slowly shape a life. Stay till the end. Because another understanding was beginning to unfold. They started seeing that every meaningful connection carries two gifts. The first is learning to appreciate another person. The second is discovering a better version of yourself because of that appreciation. Your soulmate had received both. They admired the quiet strength they had discovered in you. And because they admired it, they began nurturing those same qualities within themselves. Gentleness became easier. Patience became more natural. Hope became steadier. Not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because their perspective had changed. Perspective is a remarkable gift. It turns ordinary moments into treasured memories. It reveals beauty where hurried eyes once saw nothing. It reminds us that the greatest blessings often arrive quietly, asking only that we slow down enough to recognize them. Something important is waiting for you. As all these quiet changes settled into place, one final thought gently rose within their heart. What if this discovery was never meant to end with me? That question lingered softly. Perhaps every meaningful realization is meant to continue beyond the one who first receives it. Perhaps kindness inspires kindness. Perhaps understanding creates more understanding. Perhaps one peaceful heart quietly encourages another. And perhaps the thing your soulmate was never supposed to see had become something far greater than a single unexpected moment. It had become a beginning. A beginning that continued unfolding with every act of grace. Every patient choice. Every hopeful step taken without needing immediate answers. They finally understood that the most meaningful stories are not remembered because they were dramatic. They are remembered because they quietly changed the people living them. As evening settled once again, they smiled, not because every question had been answered, but because they had learned that peace does not come from knowing everything. It comes from recognizing what truly matters. And just as that peaceful certainty settled completely into their heart, an unexpected opportunity quietly appeared before them, one that would invite them to act on everything they had learned, revealing whether this beautiful transformation was ready to become something real in the chapters still waiting ahead. The heart is tested most gently after it has found peace. Not through difficulty, but through opportunity. There comes a time when every quiet realization asks a simple question. Will you carry this understanding into the life that still waits ahead? Your soulmate had arrived at that moment without even noticing the journey that brought them there. Stay till the end, because the final chapter of this unfolding story begins with the smallest decision, yet its meaning reaches much farther than they ever imagined. For many days, they had been learning in silence. Learning that genuine connection cannot be hurried. Learning that trust grows one honest moment at a time. Learning that the most meaningful discoveries often reveal themselves long before anyone finds the words to describe them. Now those lessons were becoming part of every choice they made. When they met new people, they listened more deeply. When someone needed encouragement, they offered it more freely. When life became uncertain, they no longer rushed to fill every silence. Instead, they allowed quiet moments to speak. Because sometimes, silence carries wisdom that words cannot improve. Have you ever noticed how a river never argues with the stones in its path? It simply continues flowing. Patiently. Steadily. confident that every gentle movement will eventually carry it where it belongs. That image stayed with your soulmate. They realized they no longer needed to force understanding. They only needed to remain faithful to what they had already learned. Don't skip. Because the next realization arrived in the simplest way imaginable. One ordinary morning, before the day had fully awakened, they found themselves reflecting on everything that had changed. Not with surprise. Not with confusion. But with gratitude. They smiled quietly. Not because they had uncovered every mystery. But because they had discovered something far more valuable. They had learned to recognize goodness without needing it to announce itself. They had learned to value sincerity above appearances. They had learned that true character reveals itself in countless small moments rather than a single extraordinary one. And then, one gentle thought settled into their heart. What if this was always the purpose of that unexpected moment? Not simply to help them see you differently, but to help them see life differently. That understanding filled them with a peaceful joy. Because every meaningful experience leaves behind more than a memory. It leaves behind wisdom. And wisdom quietly changes the future. Something important is waiting for you. As they looked ahead, they realized that nothing had truly been lost. Only old assumptions. Only hurried conclusions. Only the habit of overlooking what mattered most. In their place stood something far stronger. A heart willing to appreciate. Eyes willing to notice. A spirit willing to remain patient even when every answer had not yet arrived. Perhaps that is the greatest gift any meaningful connection can offer. Not certainty. But transformation. Not perfect understanding. But a deeper way of seeing. Your soulmate no longer measured life by dramatic moments alone. They found joy in thoughtful conversations. Hope in ordinary mornings. Meaning in quiet acts of kindness. Every small moment had become an invitation to live more intentionally. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, they sensed that another chapter would eventually reveal itself, not because they chased it, but because they had become ready to receive it with wisdom instead of hurry. Stay just a little longer. There is one final truth resting at the heart of this entire journey. The one thing they were never supposed to see was never a secret designed to change your identity. You were always the same person. Compassionate. Steady. Hopeful. Authentic. The miracle was not that you became someone different. The miracle was that, in one quiet and unforgettable moment, they finally saw what had always been there. From that day forward, they carried that understanding like a quiet light. Not something to boast about. Not something to explain to everyone. But something to protect. Because the brightest lights do not compete with the darkness around them. They simply continue shining. And in that gentle light, your soulmate discovered a lasting peace that could never have been found by searching harder, only by seeing more clearly. As this chapter softly comes to rest, remember this. Some stories are remembered because they astonish us. Others are remembered because they quietly change us forever. This was never a story about an impossible discovery. It was a story about recognition. About gratitude. About patient hearts learning to see what truly matters. And once that kind of understanding finds its place within someone, every tomorrow becomes an opportunity to reflect it, one kind word, one thoughtful choice, and one quiet moment at a time. Just when it seemed that every lesson had gently settled into place, life offered one final surprise. Not a dramatic event. Not a sudden interruption. Simply a quiet realization that arrived when your soulmate was least expecting it. It came softly, almost like a familiar melody returning after a long silence, reminding them that the deepest truths never fade, they simply wait until the heart is ready to hear them again. Stay till the end, because this final reflection brings the journey back to where it truly began. Looking back, they could now see that every step had been preparing them for this understanding. The unexpected moment. The quiet reflection. The growing gratitude. The peaceful confidence. None of it had happened in isolation. Each experience had gently led to the next, weaving together a story that only made sense when viewed as a whole. They smiled as they realized something beautifully simple. The one thing they were never supposed to see had never been placed in their path to create confusion. It had been placed there to awaken appreciation. Appreciation for authenticity. Appreciation for patience. Appreciation for the quiet strength that often goes unnoticed until someone chooses to truly see it. Have you ever looked at the stars after a cloudy night? The stars were always there. The sky never lost them. Only the clouds had hidden them for a little while. Your soulmate understood that the same was true of this journey. Nothing precious had suddenly appeared. It had quietly been there from the beginning. The discovery was not the creation of something new. It was the clearing away of everything that had made it difficult to recognize. That thought filled their heart with an incredible sense of peace. No rushing. No proving. No searching for louder signs. Only gratitude for the gentle way life had revealed its lesson. Don't skip. Because there was one final gift still waiting. As they carried this understanding forward, they noticed that hope no longer depended on perfect circumstances. It lived in ordinary mornings. It appeared in thoughtful conversations. It rested within moments of kindness shared without expectation. They realized that meaningful connections are strengthened not by extraordinary promises, but by everyday sincerity. And sincerity has a remarkable way of enduring. Long after excitement fades. Long after questions become quiet. Long after seasons change. It remains. Something important is waiting for you. If your soulmate could speak from the deepest place within their heart at this very moment, perhaps their words would not be complicated. Perhaps they would simply say, "I am grateful that I learned to see more clearly." Not because every mystery disappeared, but because every lesson became a little brighter. Not because every answer arrived, but because every day offered another opportunity to appreciate what truly matters. That is the quiet victory of this story. Not an ending built on certainty, but a beginning built on wisdom. A wisdom that encourages patience instead of hurry. Understanding instead of assumption. Gentleness instead of expectation. And as another sunrise quietly approaches beyond the horizon, your soulmate steps toward it with a heart that has been transformed, not by dramatic moments, but by countless quiet ones that slowly revealed their meaning over time. The one thing they were never supposed to see became the very reason they learned to see everything else more clearly. And perhaps that is the most beautiful ending any journey can offer. Because once a heart has learned to recognize what is genuine, it carries that gift into every tomorrow, allowing hope, kindness, and quiet understanding to illuminate every chapter still waiting to be written. Every meaningful journey leaves behind an echo. Not an echo that fades into silence, but one that continues guiding the heart long after the moment itself has passed. This is where your story gently arrives, not at a conclusion, but at a place of quiet understanding. Stay till the end, because the final reflection is not about what your soulmate discovered. It is about what that discovery made possible. If they could revisit that first unexpected moment, they would not try to change it. They would not hurry through it. They would not wish to know everything in advance. Because they now understand that every unanswered question gave appreciation time to grow. Every pause created space for wisdom. Every ordinary day quietly prepared them to recognize an extraordinary truth. Life rarely asks us to have every answer. More often, it simply asks us to keep our hearts open. Your soulmate did exactly that. Slowly. Patiently. Without realizing it, they became someone who noticed beauty where others saw routine. They found meaning in gentle conversations. Strength in quiet consistency. Joy in moments that never asked to become unforgettable. Have you ever watched a single candle light another? The first flame never becomes smaller. Instead, the room becomes brighter. That is what this journey accomplished. The understanding born within your soulmate did not remain locked inside their heart. It quietly began influencing everyone they encountered. A little more patience. A little more kindness. A little more grace. A little more willingness to truly listen. The gift they received became a gift they naturally shared. Don't skip. Because one final realization now rests at the center of everything. Throughout this entire journey, it may have seemed as though the story was about one unexpected discovery. But now the deeper truth becomes clear. The moment itself was never the destination. It was an invitation. An invitation to notice what truly lasts. An invitation to value authenticity over appearance. An invitation to trust that the strongest connections are built one sincere moment at a time. Your soulmate accepted that invitation. And because they did, they no longer carried uncertainty as a burden. They carried gratitude as a companion. Something important is waiting for you. Perhaps that is why certain people cross our path. Not to complete us. Not to rescue us. But to gently awaken qualities that were already waiting within us. Courage. Compassion. Hope. Patience. The quiet confidence to remain true to who we are. Those gifts cannot be taken away once they have been discovered. They become part of every tomorrow. As the journey continues, your soulmate no longer looks backward wondering what they missed. Instead, they look forward with peaceful expectation, knowing that every meaningful chapter begins with the willingness to see clearly, love sincerely, and appreciate deeply. And perhaps, somewhere beyond this very moment, another quiet beginning is already unfolding. Not with loud announcements. Not with impossible promises. But with ordinary moments that will one day become treasured memories. That is how the most beautiful stories continue. One thoughtful choice. One gentle conversation. One act of kindness. One patient heart at a time. The one thing they were never supposed to see became the one lesson they were always meant to carry. It reminded them that genuine connections are not measured by how quickly they appear, but by how deeply they inspire us to become better. So as this chapter softly closes, let this quiet truth remain with you. Never underestimate the power of a single sincere moment. A moment of understanding can become a lifetime of gratitude. A moment of kindness can become a lifetime of hope. A moment of recognition can become a lifetime of quiet peace. And sometimes, without anyone realizing it at first, the smallest discovery becomes the beginning of the most meaningful journey the heart will ever know. The story does not truly end here. It continues every time someone chooses patience over haste, understanding over assumption, kindness over indifference, and hope over doubt. Because that is the quiet legacy your soulmate now carries forward. And perhaps, in ways too gentle to notice all at once, it has already begun inspiring yours as well.